Welcome back to the Arbitrary YouTube channel. In today's class, we'll be learning how to make this beautiful ruffle sleeve. Okay, it's a very simple tutorial and it's beginner friendly. If this is something you like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so there are several ways you can make this ruffle sleeve, and we'll be using one of the simplest methods of making this. So I'm working with this doll face fabric for my sleeve, and the total length that I'm working with depends on how long you want this sleeve to be. For me, I want my sleeves to be around 8 inches long, so I'm going to double that measurement because I'm still going to pick it to get a ruffle, so it will become smaller. So now if I multiply 8 inches by 2, I have 16 inches, so my total length is 16 inches, as we can see here. And then the width of this is going to depend on how full you want your sleeve to be and the amount of fabric you have to work with. So for me, the round sleeve I'm working with is 16 inches, so I'm going to multiply this by 2.5 inches or 3 inches. So in total I have a fabric of 25 inches on fold, which means by the time I open it out like this, it's going to be 15 inches. So in total I have 16 inches by 50 inches. Okay, so now I'm going to create like a guide for my ruffles, for the picking that I want to do. So now this guide also is dependent on how close you want the ruffles to be to each other, but for me I'm going to be using a space of 4 inches in between for the length. So now from the starting point here, as you can see, I measure 4 inches. Okay, so I'm going to start from this hem because it's the selvage and it's more uniform. So from here now I measure 4 inches, and then I measure 4 inches from there, and then from there again I'm going to measure another 4 inches. So that's 4, so that's 4 here, then 8, then 12 inches, and then the 16 inches. So I'm going to measure this whole round now and make it into a straight line. So I have 4 inches here, 8 inches, 12 inches. So I'll keep doing this till I get to the end point. So you just do this as intervals so that I can use your ruler to join them together. So I've joined the lines now, and this is what we have. Okay, so now the vertical lines, they are taken care of. The next line is to mark them horizontally. So for this also, it depends on how close together you want your ruffles to be. So you can have an interval of 4 inches, 5 inches, 6 inches, or whatever it is that you want. But for me, I'm going to mark in 5 inches interval. So from this starting point here, I'm going to mark 5 inches. So the next is going to be 10 inches. The next one is going to be 15 inches, 20 inches, and so on. So I'll just make them 5 inches interval. I'll do this for the first one. I'll do the same thing for the second line, 5 inches interval, and then I'll do the same thing for the last line also. So I'm marking an interval of 5 inches each on all of them. So I'll keep doing this now, and then I'll bring it back to show us when all the markings are done. But like I said, this 5 inches is not a standard. This is totally up to you and how close together you want the distance between each pick for the ruffle is. Okay, so I want mine to be around 5 inches. That's why I'm marking at 5 inches interval. Okay, so the 5 inches marking is done now. I have 5 inches, so where you have all these pointing, all these markings now at the 5 inches interval that I have. So the next thing now is to mark my guide for the pleating, because you're going to be making a pleat to form these ruffles. So now to mark the guide from each of the marking that I have for my 5 inches, so on each of the marking I'm going to go outwards by 2 inches like this. Then after going outwards by 2 inches, so I have this space, these two spaces that I have, that's the 2 inches space from here to here. I'm going to mark like a rectangle to serve as the guide for my pleating. So now just to mark it tentatively, I'm just going to go up by half an inch here, half an inch here, also half an inch here, and half an inch here. Okay, so that's a total of 1 inch, and then I'm going to make that into a small rectangle. So this is going to be like a guide for me. So this is the first one. Then I'll move to the next marking. When I get to the next marking, I'm also going to go outwards by 2 inches. Then I'm going to mark like half an inch here, half an inch here. Do the same thing for the other side, and then I'm going to join them together to form my rectangle. So all this rectangle marking, now I'm going to do it to all of the markings. So you're going to do it to the next lines also. I'll mark 2 inches here, then here I'll mark like half an inch. You can mark it or you just eyeball it like I'm doing if you can, and then you connect them together to form your mini rectangle for the pleats. So the same thing, now I'm going to do it to this upper part. I'll go outwards by 2 inches, and then between the 2 inches mark I'm going to go half an inch, and do the same thing on the lower part, and then I'm going to connect it like we have seen. Okay, so I'll do this for all the markings again, and then I'll bring it back to show us what we have. Okay, so all the boxes, all the rectangles have been created. As you can see, I did this to the other hand. So now the next thing is for us to start pleating it. And so to pleat it now, remember we have like a center line here. So the center line is going to be the guide. So I'm going to fold it like this on the center line, as we have seen. Then after folding it on the center line, the next thing is for me to take this together. You can see from one end of the 2 inches to the other end like this. I'm going to take it together, then let it meet the markings, and then I'll pleat to any side you want. So you just have to be consistent with this side. So I'm pleating it towards this side. You can pick it outwards like this also. Then once these two lines are meeting each other, you're going to pleat it like this. So I'm just going to pleat it now, and then hold it with a pin to show us. So now the first pleating is done. Then I'm going to go over to the next box, pick it at the center line, the horizontal line that we have at the center part. Then after picking it at the center line, I'll make these 2 points meet each other like this. Then once they meet, I'm going to pleat it to this side. So the second pleating is done, and then I'm going to hold this with a pin. I'll go over to the next one, do the same thing, pick it at the center line like this. Then make sure these two inches, the 2 inches, remember after our 5 inches mark we went outwards by 2 inches. So I'm just going to fold the 2 inches to meet each other like this. Then after meeting, I'm going to pleat it to this side. So this that I have done now, I'm going to do it to all of the rectangles. So after pleating it, I'll take it to the sewing machine and then just sew on this line alone the ½ inch. I remember after the center line we went and downwards by ½ an inch and also upward. So now this is just going to all this marking is just going to be like a guide. So once you pleat it, you can see where you will need to sew. I'm going to sew from this end to this end. I'll sew from this end to this end. So I'll sew this for all of them now, and then I'll bring it back to show us. But just see what we have on the right side. You can see that the ruffles now are created with our pleats. So now I'll go over to the sewing machine now and sew all of them, then bring it back for us to continue. Okay, so now I've gone ahead to pleat them. As you can see, I used a green thread so that we can see my sewing. You can see it. So you just pull it along the same line. So you can see I pleated. This is the first one, this is the second one, and this is the third one. So now they are all pleated, and if you turn it to the right side, you can see that the ruffles now are created. So you can see, so this is what 5 inches gap gave me. If you want them closer together, you can use 4 inches or 3 inches depending on what you want. So now this is what I have now. The next thing now is to cut out my basic sleeve to gather this. Okay, so this is my basic sleeve now. So now I'm going to pick the 2 ends of my sleeve. So one end now, I'm going to gather it to this. So you can actually leave it as it is like this, but this part is very rough. So if you want to leave it as it is, if you don't mind seeing all these rough edges, now all you just need to do now is to create a casing on the hemline here, and then you pass your elastic to gather it together, and then you shape the upper part here to fit your armhole. Then you're going to gather it also to your armhole measurement. So you just take it together here before you, it's easier before you create your ruffle. So you take it together like this, and then you create your armhole, then you gather it to your armhole size. But because I don't want to be seeing these rough edges, I'm going to be making this basic sleeve serve as my lining. So now that's what I'm going to use to gather mine. I'm not going to use elastic. So to do this now, I'm going to, this is what I want to achieve by the time I'm done. I want it to be like this. So to do this now, I'll place this now right side facing, right side of my ruffles facing the wrong side of my fabric, and then I'm going to gather all of this to fit into the hem of this sleeve. Okay, so I'm going to gather it to fit the hem. So after gathering it now, I'll flip it over like this, and then gather this also on the upper part. So I'll do the lower part first and then bring it back to us to continue. Okay, so I've gone ahead to gather it on the hem like this. You can see I gathered it to fit the hem of the sleeve. So now the next thing is to fold it over to the head of the sleeve, and also gather this also on the head. Okay, so it's that simple. So if you're working with an off shoulder sleeve, remember this is a full shoulder sleeve, you're working with an off shoulder sleeve, so the shape that you're going to be having for your basic sleeve is going to be an off shoulder, and then the same way we have gathered this is the same way we're going to do for that also. So I'll take this to the sewing machine also, and then gather all of this to fit into the head of this sleeve. So you can see what we have so far. Okay, so I've gone ahead to gather it to the head of this. If you can see that all the rough edges now is concealed, and you can see my seam line here. I'm using a contrasting color so that you can see. So when you're doing yours, make sure you use a matching color of thread. So you can see the ruffles that we have here. You can see how close together they are and how beautiful they are looking. So now the next thing now is for you to also gather the underarm area, that's the side of the sleeve. You're going to also gather it to fit each other on both sides like this. Then after doing that, I'm going to take the underarm together and then close it. So I'll do this, then bring it back to show us what it looks like. Okay, so I've gone ahead to sew it on the underarm, as we can see, and now I'm going to turn it to the other side. So turning it to the other side, this is what it looks like. So now so this round part is where you sew to your armhole. Okay, so when you're drafting your basic sleeve, you use your exact armhole measurement to draft your basic sleeve, and this is the ruffles that we have for the sleeve. So now I'll take this to the mannequin so that we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so this is what the sleeve looks like. You can see how lovely our ruffles is and how beautiful the sleeve came out. I hope you enjoyed making this tutorial with me. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.